Hey, everybody, and welcome to Pot of the South. I'm Gerard Matthews.
John Whiteside.
And I think we want to just take this episode to talk about food. Maybe call it food finds or something like that.
With everything going on, I swear to God, the thing that makes me the most happy now is food.
Well, you brought this up last time, and I appreciate it. At the end of the last episode, we talked about Big K's Catfish Barn.
I want to hear all about it.
So I am of the opinion that catfish ought to be the official food of the state of Arkansas. I don't know what the state food is here, if we have one, or if that is even such a thing. It might be.
I think it probably is, especially commercially, because I think we could have an argument that I'm a big fried crappie guy. I love fried brim. I specifically love whole fried brim. I could show you a whole way to do it. But commercially, I think, it's got to be catfish, right?
Yeah. But man, you just made me think crappie. Oh,
it's way up there.
Fried crappie's so good.
So tell me about this Big K's.
So Big K's is in between Hazen and Carlisle. So if you are leaving from Little Rock, it takes you about 55 minutes to get there.
Okay. Why were you there?
Totally worth it. So it was a friend of mine's birthday. And so there was a group of about 12 of us that went. And you would think like 12 or 14 of us maybe we'll have a hard time sitting together. Not at this place. So you're driving out in the middle of nowhere, which is not exactly true. That restaurant that you said, Murray's, it's nearby.
Murray's is incredible, by the way.
Okay, I've never been to Murray's.
We'll get to it.
So a little past Murray's, you take a left off that highway, and you pull up to literally a farm, just silos and this huge barn. And so you walk in, and that's the picture I sent. I mean, it's enormous.
I could have swore it was Oyster Supper or some event because it looked like Coon Supper or one of those big political events.
Planned event. Long rows of picnic tables that have like white plastic tablecloths. They put salt and pepper and ketchup and stuff out on the hot sauce out on the tables. $20 cash. The line sort of wraps around the barn. So when you get in there, you're in line for, it's not really even that long, but like maybe 15 minutes. So that gives you time to catch up with, who you're there with if you didn't do it in the car for an hour. But you slap a 20 on the table, $20 cash. That's what they take. If you've got a card, you're
it's a good
shit
system.
Out of luck. And then you go through this buffet, and it's just damn near perfect. So like we talked on a previous episode, maybe this was an outtake, about like the need to have something pickled.
Sure.
And bright.
Yeah.
They had sliced dill pickle spears, pickled okra.
You need the acidity to cut the richness.
Green tomato relish.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Which nobody has green tomato relish anymore.
That's very true. Like there's a chow chow and like a green tomato relish that we used to eat with catfish, and it's spectacular. And you're right, you don't see it anymore. And I think there's something so communal about catfish, because I remember DeWitt used to have this Don's Catfish Barn, and same thing. It was so communal on Friday night, everybody eating the same thing. I don't think there was any variation, but it was just, we've really kind of missed that as a society. And catfish is so universal and something where you can have a almost party-like atmosphere. So I'm really excited to try this place. But anyway, keep going about your experience.
So you get past the pickled portion of the buffet. They have creamy coleslaw and vinegary coleslaw, which I appreciate because I don't like coleslaw slathered in mayonnaise.
Oh, mayonnaise is we got to have a whole episode about how much I hate mayonnaise. But go on.
And then French fries, hush puppies, chicken tenders, and catfish fillets. That's it.
All you can eat?
All you can eat.
How were the hush puppies?
Meh.
Okay.
They were the little round.
Yeah.
Well, they're fine.
The little, like if you dunk them in hot sauce, it's okay.
Yeah. And I like.
You almost have to reconstitute them.
Hush puppies they're the only thing I'll dip in tartar sauce.
Okay.
So you got to eat a couple of hush puppies just to say you did. I think they did have some catfish steaks. I saw somebody eating those. Like I didn't even look at those or see those on the buffet. But you don't have to wait to go through the whole line if you want seconds. So if you want seconds, you just kind of go up and kind of, hey,
slip in.
The fish was fantastic. The worst thing about fried catfish is if they don't trim it up right and it gets fishy.
Right.
That's just can be really gross. Great catfish. And you're there in a barn full of that was full for the, and we stayed there
So you
2
mentioned
hours.
it was seasonal, right?
They only are there from December to March.
And is it a Friday, Saturday night gig and that's it? Or
it might be Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Those are the best places.
Yeah, but it might be just Friday, Saturday. I'm not sure. But a friend of mine made a good observation. It's like, he's like, I like to be in a place where so many different types of camouflage can exist in one spot.
Real tree,
mossy oak, and real tree.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it did have this feeling of this is kind of special. Yeah. This doesn't happen all the time. And there were all different kinds of people in there, and it was just a really special thing. And the food was incredible. And then for dessert, they have a biscuit station.
Jesus Christ, this sounds like heaven.
They're just deep frying biscuits, flaky.
That's a really good way to do biscuits, yeah.
Which they fluff up a little bit, and it tastes like a donut. Yeah. And they had this big bowl of powdered sugar with a couple of big spoons in it, so you just shake some
New Mexico
sugar
and Oklahoma. I have a friend who would be remiss if I didn't say it's an Oklahoma thing, but it's a very big New Mexico thing, and that's fry bread, and that's essentially what that is. It comes almost like a beignet, and you put sweet stuff on it. And we used to do it in college because I had a pretty redneck friend from DeWitt who would just open up the can of biscuits and fry them in the the Fry Daddy. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And my brother does it my brother's got a couple of fryers that on his back patio that we use to do fish fries for the family all the time. And he'll do the biscuits at the end. I had never seen that out at a place.
It's kind of universal if you think about it. Yeah. Sopapilla is not much different than that,
Yeah. And it does taste like a beignet. And you would think that it would absorb some of that kind of fishy.
Not if it's hot. Yeah.
No, it's so good. So the food was great. You can eat. I can eat an embarrassing amount of fried catfish, but I left with that perfect amount. I wasn't too stuffed.
Yeah,
and we just had a great time.
Did you go back to Little Rock afterwards?
Yeah,
that's the only big down. Yeah.
It's a sleepy drive home. Yeah,
yeah. So let's go. Would you say that's the best fried catfish you've ever had in Arkansas? We can open it up to universal in the world, but I think Arkansas would have a pretty good run at the best catfish.
It's not. I grew up on really good catfish restaurants. I'm from Texarkana, which is down on the Texas-Arkansas border, a little bit east of Texarkana.
Ashdown, when there a place there? I remember as a kid, I grew up in Dallas, but we'd go duck hunting, and we always made a pilgrimage through Texarkana, and we would stay at that Holodome, which was really big to do back then, and we'd always eat at Cattleman's Steakhouse.
My uncle worked there.
Or the hamburger joint on Main Street, which I forget. And
TLC.
Yeah, TLC. And then there was a catfish joint that we went one Friday night, and I thought it was towards Ashdown, but my directions get so screwed up when I get past Texarkana.
It might have been. There were a lot of places when I was a kid that would do those big catfish dinners, where you go to the place and the only thing on the the only choice you had to make was, did you want fillets or whole?
Right.
Because they brought out.
God, I love whole catfish.
Do you?
Oh my God. If it's done right. Well, so not to take it, not Arkansas centric, but Oyster Cracker in Dallas had this whole called the Adios Amigos catfish. And it was a whole catfish that they would score. I think you see it a lot in ethnic restaurants or really good Mexican joints where you can cook a big fish if you score it and allows the grease to get in there. They would score a whole catfish, dunk it, and then they had this kind of Mexican hot sauce that they would brush on it. I swear to God, I'm getting excited just thinking about the memory of it. But the Adios Amigos catfish at Oyster Cracker at Medallion Center in Dallas had world class. But every once in a while, I'll get a hankering for it, and I'll go get a whole catfish and cook it just like that. And it's really kind of a hot sauce, chili paste that you put on it.
Oh, that sounds.
It was so amazing, so good. I don't know if we cuss anymore, but it was so fucking good.
Oh, that was no. And I grew up. My first job was at Doc's Fish and Steakhouse, which Doc's was in Garland City, Arkansas.
Okay.
At that time, the only things that were in Garland City, Arkansas was Doc's, an Easy Mart, a church, a liquor store, and a club.
So everything you need.
Everything you need. And then now, a few years after I, when I went off to college, obviously, I worked there all through high school. And a few years later, another catfish place went in right down the street, called West Shore, and everybody thought, well, that'll put Doc's out of business or something, and it didn't. They're just both full.
They're still there.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
They're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and they're like both full all the time. And they're out in the middle of nowhere.
I have this conversation with a couple in DeWitt who does a lot of good stuff. They have a coffee shop, and they're kind of progressive in trying to bring back DeWitt. And as we all know, it's a struggle in rural America. But what I don't understand is that when great restaurants emerge, whether it's, there's a place in Gregory, which is the same guy who owns Doe's in Little Rock, but he has just a tamale and steak shop. You couldn't pack another human in there. And I think the population of Gregory is, 150 people. Yeah. So great restaurants, people will drive to. You have a place in Steakhouse in Dumas that does bang up business. But on the Mississippi side of the river, almost every small town, I swear, has like one really great restaurant. And they're above us in terms of that kind of thing, because I think Mississippi may have more dysfunction than Arkansas. But it's really interesting when you go through the Mississippi Delta that every town will have a restaurant that's pretty remarkable. And so what kind of always broke my heart is that Catfish restaurants, you think would always hang on, because, what's better on a Friday night than having that communal experience? But from my experience, they've all closed down. And I don't know if that's younger generations. They don't work anymore, as you know. But
yeah. I don't know that there was one down around Texarkana. I can't remember in which direction because I was a little kid, but it was called Spruil's, and it was like that where you go in and it's just all you can eat, and they set the table with hush puppies and green tomato relish and onion slices and pickles and coleslaw, and then they just bring huge plates of fish until everybody.
There was a place we used to go fishing on Caddo Lake, which is on the Louisiana-Texas border, not far. But they had a place called the Pines that had really good steaks, but they had hush puppies that they made. And I redo this too. They had jalapeno hush puppies that they would push out of a pastry tube. No, it would come out like an elongate. So imagine, like what you would decorate a cake with, a pastry tube. They put the hush puppy dough batter, whatever you want to call that, into the hot grease. They would squirt little logs. It's the best. Again, it's kind of like the Adios Amigos cap. It was the best hush puppies on earth. And I'm sure they had catfish, but we would always, we're always doing the Friday night steak deal. But they would just, to start the meal, kind of like you would do salsa at a Mexican restaurant, they would just bring you a bowl of these hush puppies. And there's never been a better hush puppy ever.
Wow. You got a favorite catfish spot? Or?
I think it's Lasses Inn. And I really, I think we want to make this podcast a movement for positive change. I think we have to stay I think we need to stay on top of bringing Lasses Inn back, because I think there's some overhyped things, but in terms of like really spectacular catfish, and I'm sure people have had different experiences. First time I went to Lasses Inn, I really came online because that bite really was, and I can't say it's been every time, but that experience was the best catfish I'd ever had.
Fillets.
Up to that point, fillets.
Yeah.
We talked about the buffalo ribs. I'm a huge fan of buffalo ribs, but they're not that well done at Lasses Inn.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a place in DeWitt called the Catfish Barn that has the best buffalo ribs. And I remember being taken as a kid, and the old man that I went with ordered buffalo ribs. I'm like, holy shit, he's going to order the ribs of a bison? And he's like, no, you idiot. This is a buffalo fish. And some people still don't know. It's kind of the rib cage of a buffalo fish. And when they're done right, they got to be fried really hot, but it's kind of like eating a little rib, kind of like a fried rib of fish. The place, Catfish Barn in DeWitt, does it absolutely perfect. But in terms of my favorite place and one I want to come back desperately is the catfish fillets at Lasses Inn.
Yeah, Lasses is good. I had the buffalo ribs there and preferred the fillets. But for those who haven't been there, Lasses is like a little house.
Yeah.
And there's like a jukebox in there, but then there's a sign that says no dancing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I asked him what the deal with that was, and he was like, man, people tearing my floors up.
He walked around last time I was in there, and he's got such a unique name. I'm not thinking of it right now, but he was walking around with his James Beard medal, and he sat down and showed it to me. And so it's pretty rare that you go into a restaurant for lunch and the owner, and it's like Llewellyn. It's such a cool name. I can't believe I can't think of it, but he was walking around with his James Beard medal.
Yeah. We've got a lot of great catfish places in Arkansas. There's like a dearth of them in Little Rock for some reason. I don't even really want to shout out. Like, if I need to scratch the itch, I do eat my catfish because it's right there. Too. Yeah.
It's always been adequate, but we talked about eggs with hot sauce. I'm big on Louisiana, you know, the straight Louisiana hot sauce, and I don't do tartar sauce. I don't do any of that stuff. Every time I go, I have, you know, they give me a paper plate that has little sections. I kind of clear out the slaw or fries, and that little thing just serves as my bowl of hot sauce because every single bite needs Louisiana hot sauce.
Every single
bite.
I just pour it on at it, just like
see that gets soggy, but it's that fresh. You know, it's the fresh dip. I can really give you advanced tips on this because having that little pool of hot sauce, you know, the fish stays crispy, then it hits the hot sauce, and like you. I really don't eat a lot, but like when I'm in a mood for catfish, or I mean, those buffalo ribs I ate like 1.5 pounds and didn't faze me.
Yeah.
I can eat a lot of catfish that way.
Well, we might have to go hit that spot in Texas and then
let's do it.
That sounds amazing. Where else, like what, you come across anything else recently that's just,
stuff that makes me proud?
Yeah.
I have to give a shout out. I'm wearing a hat for Isbell Farms because I've just been so impressed, but I think we all have pretty hardcore pride. And I was born in Arkansas. You were born in Arkansas. I had to grow up in Texas, but was always a hardcore Democrat, hardcore Razorback growing up in Texas. So it was pretty burdensome. I was always kind of the object of derision. But Isbell Farms in Lone Oak has been growing a sake rice for 20 years. I met Mr. Isbell, and he said he ran into a guy. And I think it was at UC, he was at UC Davis, and he ran into a Japanese guy, and they started talking about rice. And he's like, well, I'm a rice farmer. Japanese guy was a rice farmer. And they started talking about their hometowns. And just by coincidence, they looked on a map, and this guy's hometown in Japan and this guy's farm in Lone Oak were on the same longitude or latitude, I guess.
Yeah.
They were literally on the exact same latitude. And so that got him thinking that maybe he could grow this type of rice. Fast forward 25 years later, he's been growing this sake rice. Well, Matt Bell and a couple other people come along who've been schooled in sake making, and they opened up a place called Origami Sake in Hot Springs. They're making world-class sake. Like, you know how we always kind of get pride with Arkansas, but you know it can't really compete. Like, there's some good beers or whatever, you know, and everybody wants to champion it. This sake can compete on, literally, it's world-class sake. They're making it with Hot Springs water, Lone Oak rice, and they're doing really well. They just expanded into New York. A lot of the restaurants, they even have a zero, so you can, you know, they have a non-alcoholic version, but it really
non-alcoholic sake.
Yeah, it's really sincerely the thing I'm most proud about in terms of like if I was traveling and wanted to, you know, it used to be Bill Clinton, you know, you're from Arkansas. I would really, one of the first things out of my mouth would be Origami Sake because, like I said, Lone Oak rice, Hot Springs water, which is Mountain Valley, which is another great product. And they're just, you know, I couldn't be prouder of them, and it's incredible sake.
So I've seen this. I don't drink, so cool that they have like a 0% thing. But where I've seen it, I guess it's sort of like fancier events or maybe tastings that they've hosted. Do they have this in restaurants around here?
You can get it at Kroger. You can get it at, you know, kind of local liquor stores. But Kimuri has done like a sashimi fish tasting paired with, you know, sakes. They've done a really good job about promoting, you know, kind of doing partnerships with restaurants. You can get it at Mount Fuji. So they're doing a good job of kind of expanding into restaurants first. But yeah, if you want to go try it, the 1,000 cranes you can buy at Kroger right now. And I've tried to be the ambassador. I'm not getting paid, but you know, I would love to, you know, if they want to give me some. But it's something I just, you know, it's really easy to drink. It pairs incredibly well with fish. I've never really liked white wine as much. I like a good red if I'm eating a big steak or lamb, but white never really did it with me with fish. It just, for whatever reason. And I really don't like cooked fish. I mean, let's go back to the fried catfish. But the thing I get most excited about is pure raw sashimi, and sake goes so well with it. And it's just something that I'm incredibly proud of because they're just doing it so right. The Isbell farm is just, they're just incredible people. Like they should be Arkansas ambassadors.
Have you ever had sake with fried catfish?
No, but let's try it. That's the first thing we should do.
No, but I mean, there's that saying, you know, if it grows together, it goes together. And so, like,
I'm telling you, it cleans the palate better than any wine I've ever seen. So I could totally, you know, like we've talked about this, not to get too much into the Epicurean value, but the reason hot sauce is so good with something rich is it's that balance. It's that vinegar-rich balance, and it clears the palate. And that's why you can eat a shit ton of catfish when you're dunking into hot sauce because you don't hit that stopping point of richness. Sake would probably work because when you take a sip, it literally cleanses the palate.
So do you have it cold or hot?
Cold. Hot is a joke. So hot is kind of like the California roll. You know, when people think they like sushi and they're eating a roll that has fake crab meat and avocado, I'm like, there's no fish in there.
Right.
So you can skip past the hot sake. That's always been garbage. This is all cold. There's an unfiltered, which is kind of sweet and is very good, you know, for people who want to kind of dip their toe in it. But the really, I think the high watermark for sake is a cold sake that it's not dry, but it's a real clean, not sweet. They're going to win tons of awards, and you can say you heard it here first because it's incredible sake. It's all Arkansas products, and they should be on Arkansas Tourism. And they just built like a world-class brewing facility in Hot Springs. Can't wait. I haven't been there yet, but it's something I'm pretty proud of.
What else?
You need to go to Murray's.
What's it like? Is it a steak and fish place? Is it?
No, it's got catfish and it's pretty incredible. They have incredible fried quail. I'm sure they have steaks and everything else. It's been a legendary spot. Not to name drop, but I was hunting at Wingmead, which is one of the best clubs in North America. And they've always had a relationship with, I don't know his name, but I assume it was Murray. And he was just kind of a legendary cook forever. And now the second generation of the family is bringing the restaurant back. But I kind of did a trip one time, and I have no idea why we haven't done it again. But a group of my friends from college, we all did a road trip to Murray's. It's phenomenal. I mean, it will just knock your socks off.
Do you have the quail?
I had the fried quail.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
So you're a duck hunter. Do you eat duck?
I do, and I'm trying to eat more of it. It's always a struggle because if you've ever eaten duck in a restaurant, that is a bird that's raised on.
That's a fattened duck.
Yeah, I mean it's a beautiful piece of meat, but just think of the concept of a duck that's walking around a barnyard its whole life, never using its breast and getting a lot of fat, versus a wild duck that literally was born in Alberta, Canada, has flown 4,000 miles and has very little fat on it. It's not corn finished and then slaughtered. So it takes some, I was talking with my uncle about it. We've been cooking it more, and really low and slow is the only way. There's 4 million recipes. I've tried them all.
And do you cook them whole, or do you piece them out?
We have such a neat setup down there. There's a Barbara Herman who has been cleaning our ducks forever. They come and they look like a butcher did it. They're whole. They're wrapped in butcher paper and they're just beautiful birds. I'll bring you one. But the way the tried and true method is bake it low and slow, like literally 275, 3 or 4 hours in some kind of liquid. And then we have this thing called Kingdom Come sauce, which is, I'll give you some.
Okay.
But essentially it's Worcestershire, sherry, and a lot of butter. And it's one of the most beautiful sauces. You could probably pour it over a shoe, and shoe would taste pretty good. But Kingdom Come sauce and a slow baked duck. I mean, basically you just need to bake it slow and covered with either chicken stock on it or some type of.
And do you do anything to sear it or crisp it up?
I've tried all those ways, and it's never really worked that well. The only other thing you can do if you get a fresh duck or a fresh speckle belly, which is a really good goose, is just cut it off the breast and sear it and kind of serve it rare. That's another great way.
Okay.
But there's no question it's a challenge. And I've always, look, you need to eat what you kill. And so, it's easy not to eat duck. Like I have friends who are like, why don't we just cook up some chicken? It's like, okay, but you really need to make an effort to kind of eat what you kill. And it just takes a little bit more to cook a wild duck because it's so lean.
Right.
But I can certainly show you pretty amazing results.
Well, and I would figure they would do pretty good in like stews and stuff like that.
Yeah, great in gumbo. Anything where you're low and slow, it's gonna be good.
Well, so I grew up eating. My whole family were big hunters. My dad and my brothers went duck hunting all the time. My grandfather, and we ate a lot of duck, and it was cooked in a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
With a bunch of onions and mushrooms and celery
till it falls off.
And then you'd bite into the shot.
Yeah.
Just almost break every time. And it was so gamey. And, my parents were good cooks, but there's only so much you can do to it.
It's really hard, but I've got, happy to share recipes because I've gone through lots of trial and error, and there's, you get in a garden and gun, they're like, oh, just turn it up to 475 and roast it. And they're all recipes for domestic duck, and they
Right.
just do not fit for wild duck.
And I've heard of people like bacon wrapping the breasts and grilling them real quick.
Anything you can do to add more fat
yeah.
is good, but the reality is that if you get, and Arkansas has better ducks than most, they really have a pretty good fatty skin, but you need to get that skin off because that's what's gamey. And I think it's counterproductive if you cook a lot of steaks or fat is flavor. Well, that fat helps keep some moisture in, so you want it, but you want to get it off before you serve it because it just innately keeps a gamey flavor, and it just doesn't render like a beef fat or any kind of a marbling. It's really just their protective coat.
So I took a lot of French classes in college and ended up going to study there when I was in college, and went there for a year after I got out of school, and had duck breast at a French restaurant in Paris when I was like 23.
And it blew your mind.
And I was just like, what is this? And it was the best thing ever. But yeah, it has like a ton of fat on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally a duck that's been walking around the yard.
Yeah. And they
corn.
sear it, they pan sear it. And it's like usually like a nice sauce or whatever. But that just blew my mind because I'd been eating duck my whole life, but never like that.
Yeah.
And, gosh, I mean, just French chefs know how to cook that kind of duck, and they do all kinds of cool stuff like the foie gras, which I really love, which you're not supposed to like anymore. And they've really changed the rules about how that's produced. But I just love duck, but I mean, I don't have I definitely don't shoot them, and I don't have the opportunity to try to cook it myself.
I've got plenty I can bring to you. So,
all right. Well, I'd say that's like a pretty good first food finds episode, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'm ready to go exploring for some more.
Yeah. So, and oftentimes it happens where John and I, John's a political consultant. I'm a filmmaker, videographer. So a lot of times we have to pair up and go into these odd corners of Arkansas, and we are usually pretty good at finding.
We can tease the Taco Villa episode.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about Taco Villa. I think the
Taco Villa.
I think the locals call it Taco
I refuse.
Villa.
Yeah, it's definitely Taco Villa. But I think in college, one of my friends was like, "Oh, the two L's in Spanish, have an E sound." I was like, "Oh yeah, Pancho Villa, Taco Villa. That makes a lot more sense."
Right.
But it's Taco Villa to all the rest of it.
That doesn't fly.
That is the greatest taco hot sauce in the history of man.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree, hands down. Well, we'll talk about that next time we talk about food, and we'll see you next time.
I'm excited.